Let's make sure that all classrooms are places where mistakes are not seen as negative, where mistakes are seen as opportunities to learn. Mistakes are seen as the building blocks for the next chapter of your life. As a male educator at your school site, it can get lonely. Only 23% of K-12 educators in America are male. And just think about what this gender gap means for your male students. They experience disproportionate levels of discipline. This is a show for male educators who want to feel more understood by their community and want to create emotionally safe classrooms and schools for the next generation of male students. Welcome to Unmasking with Male Educators. Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome to this reflection episode. I'm reflecting and thinking back to episode 16 with Roni Habib. And listen, Roni is a really good friend in this work of emotional intelligence. He's the founder of EQ Schools. And in our episode, we had lots of conversation. It was our second time having a conversation on the podcast. This is the first episode with him in the education series. But we always talk about education. We always talk about how do we make classrooms more not only equitable, more intelligent, more emotionally safe for kids, but also how do we make classrooms more joyous? And in that podcast, I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 16, where we talk about all the things about how he is doing work with educators and trainings to make classrooms feel more open to learning. Now, I don't know about you when you were in school. I'm not sure what kind of student you were, or if you loved school, you hated school. I'm not sure of your connection to school, but for me, I've been all of them. I've been a kid who hated school, and I was a kid who actually loved school. And I think if I can talk about the two differences, what I'm clear about is there's a difference in how teachers treat you when you like school. Like, I think the energy they feel from you is a likable energy. And it's also energy they can feel when you don't like school. I knew what it was like when I didn't like school, didn't want to be there, didn't like the teacher, didn't like the school, didn't like the class, didn't like the classmates. Like, I knew what that felt like because my energy with the teacher was always combative. When I went to middle school, where I was in a season of my life being bullied, I didn't want to go to school. Now, for me, math class was easy. So I loved math. Math, I was always like doing fantastic. I'll be finished my work in 10 minutes and I'm talking the whole time, getting in trouble usually because teachers don't like when students are talking and goofing off because they want you to be working the whole time. But I'm done. Like, this work is too easy. Like, I finished in 12 minutes. Like, what am I doing for the other 35 minutes? I can't be sitting here just quiet. It didn't fit in my lexicon of like sit quiet and don't move. And so I got in trouble a lot. Easy trouble, not too terrible trouble, but enough trouble that I had to like my name called out loud too many times. So imagine if you are a person who really likes school, then your energy is this positive, pleasant energy. And if you're a student who doesn't like school, your energy will draw that too. And I know what it was like. So when I got to high school and I was like determined, by the time I got to ninth grade, I was on track. Now, back then, ninth grade was still in junior high. So I had to walk to the high school to get my geometry class started early because it was the only way I was going to be able to finish calculus by the time I graduated. Like, I already had done the math. Like, if I didn't get algebra wasn't guaranteed for ninth graders back then. But if I wanted to go to college, then I was going to have to get through calculus, which means the only way I'm going to get through calculus is I got to get these other math classes out of the way. Thank God for Miss Hiltz at Fremont High School, who I recently got to see. I'll come back to that another time. But Miss Hiltz was the person who was in the department chair role, or she had a big role at the school. So I had to walk from the middle school over to the high school to go meet Miss Hiltz to get permission to take geometry starting early. Everyone knew I wasn't a student at the school. And then when I'm in class, like most of the kids weren't really asking a whole lot of questions. I'm asking questions. I'm like, and they're like, who is this? Who is this person? Like, who is this person? paying attention, focused, like, because I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody at the school. It's like 1,000 kids. I don't know anybody. I'm coming every day from the middle school over to try and just get this geometry. And when people start finding out you're like a nerd or something, you don't get a whole lot of brownie points. It's not a really positive thing. So my journey of being a student who really loved school, early elementary, to being a student who hated school, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, new school, new kid at this new school up in the Oakland Hills. Then middle school, going through the bullying phase and the drama that I was dealing with in middle school. And then finally, around 9th grade, end of 8th grade, early 9th grade, getting my act together, it all transformed. And so as educators, we have to be also, depending on what our journey of education was, if we were students who always loved school, then we got to be careful. Because if you always love school, then when you meet a kid who hates school, you can take it personal. Listen, Miss BP, she knew I hated English. She knew it. But I really was a big fan of Miss BP. Like we would make up different names for what BP stand for. Like BP stood for lots of things. But that's what we did because we were silly little kids. But what I was clear about is that she didn't care that I didn't like her class. She always just held space to make room, even when I was being a knucklehead in her class. She didn't take it personal. So I don't know what your journey is as a teacher, educator, parent, student, as a mentor, as a coach, as a counselor, whatever role you play in the school buildings, whether you're at the district office or you're in the schoolhouse itself. I'm inviting you to be a person who is able to handle kids who like school in different capacities, different velocities, different, I don't even know the word to use in this moment. If you meet a kid who doesn't like school, that should be like, oh, tell me more about that. Not, oh, you know what? You should like school because school is the only way you're going to get an education. If you don't have an education, you're going to ruin your life. If you ain't never met a kid who told you they don't care about their education, you would know that sentence means almost nothing to a kid who's decided that they don't care. It doesn't mean you don't try it. It means you need to have more things in your repertoire when you meet a kid who hates school, as opposed to telling him they're going to throw their life away. Because most of them know somebody who didn't do education and is doing just fine out there doing whatever they do. But what happens when we're in classes where young people, we can't give them a magic sentence? We've given all our best speeches and pep talks and quotes and videos. We showed them to inspire them, and they still are just looking at us like, yeah, you're doing too much. I know that kid. I'm that kid. So when I meet that kid as a teacher, when I meet that kid as a mentor, when I meet that kid as a person on the outside coming into schools, I get it. When I see them in the auditorium talking to their friend the whole workshop, I get it. It doesn't mean it doesn't bother me. It doesn't mean that I may not say something, but I get it because I've been there. And what I'm trying to do when I'm in those spaces, I'm just saying, if you just give me a few minutes to maybe learn one thing, then you can go back to your life after you leave this workshop. I want to name for them what I know is probably happening because you got a class, you got free time. I'm sitting with my friends. I'm going to just hang out and goof off. And I totally get it too. So we're talking about creating environments of learning that are excited. In that conversation with Roni, I was like, man, you know what I remember? And I remember this visual that I saw. I saw a couple of visuals that I saw. I'll give you the most sophisticated one, and then I'll tell you the one that was the most exciting for me. There's a effect, this philosophy of development, I guess you can call it. It's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect. And if you look at it, what you will see, for those that are listening, let's think the y-axis, the vertical axis, is confidence. So you go from low to high, just one quadrant. Okay, so from low to high, that's the vertical. Low at the bottom, high at the top. That's a confidence column, confidence axis. And if you think that the horizontal axis, you think about starting where 0 is know nothing, and then all the way to the very end is guru. Okay, that's your competence, knowledge, experience axis. And the way the Dunning-Kruger effect describes it is that when you are trying something new, when you're about to go after something brand new and you got a big idea, a big goal, a big dream, and you go, they call that the peak of Mount Stupid. I'm at the peak. I'm at the top. I'm like, I got this. I'm going to do something amazing. Yeah. And as soon as you start that thing you want to do new, that thing you want to try different, more than likely, if you're not careful, your confidence level, it will drop you down into what they call the valley of despair. So you go from the peak of Mount Stupid to the valley of despair. When you have the least experience, when you're first getting started, is usually when you have the highest amount of confidence. You're just excited. You're excited because it's something new. You're about to start a new endeavor. You're at the peak of your confidence level, but you have the least experience. You probably met people like that before who are super excited, and you're like, have you done anything yet? They're like, no, not yet, not yet. But they're fired up. And what ends up happening sometimes is that we can like we can actually pull them down off the peak of Mount Stupid, and they just get stuck in the valley of despair because the people around them are not supporting them. And that is not only what happens in learning, that can happen in our lives as well as adults, not just with teenagers. It can happen with 30 somethings and 40 something who are starting a new career or going back to school or starting entrepreneurship or starting a new endeavor that they are passionate about. Like the idea is like, yes, I'm going, let's go. And if we're not careful, when we hit that fall where we realize, oh, we don't even know what we're doing. How do I build a website? How do I market? How do I social media? How do I? We get stuck in a cycle of like the valley of despair where it's like, why did I do this in the first place? And when you are on your way out of the valley of despair, which is this bottom flat part down at low confidence, because now you tried it, you failed, you messed up, you don't seem to be doing good as you were hoping to do. You're in this valley of despair. And the next part to come out of the valley of despair was what they call the slope of enlightenment. I begin to make progress. And once you finish and up the slope of enlightenment, you're at the plateau of sustainability, and then you're on your way, right? That's the taking you toward that guru status. But in this area of know nothingness and low confidence, you're in the valley of despair. Now, some people would describe it. If you look at just a simple image of it, it just shows you're at the peak of Mount Stupid, you fall, hit the valley of despair, and you climb your way out to the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of sustainability. But actually, some people get stuck in the valley of despair. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you know someone who's been there. You tried something, you were super excited about it, and you failed. And then you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then maybe you didn't fold your arms and pout like you were a little kid, but maybe you did. Maybe you didn't know you were pouting and folding your arms like a little kid. And somebody said, hey, are you quitting on yourself? Are you giving up? Why are you giving up? Come on, keep going. Maybe no mentor or coach came around. So you just sat in the valley of despair forever, trying over and over again. And maybe at some point you say, I'm not doing it anymore. And so sometimes the image that I'm going to show you, or the image that you maybe want to look at when you look at the Dunning-Kruger effect, you'll see the bottom part where the valley of despair, it can look deceiving that you can be only in the valley of despair just one time, and then you finally become a guru. Well, sometime that cycle may be revolving. It may get really slippery down there in that mess, trying to get out. But it requires us to continue the work. That's a visual that can maybe help you understand. If you are going after something, if you are trying something, and that not only goes for students learning new subjects in classes, it also goes for teachers. You finish your teacher ed program, you taught at this one school down the street, you did really great there, you had a great master teacher, and now you're going to be your first year teacher. You go into your class, you got everything all beautiful, and the first time you walk in, the first group of students walk in, they just look at you like, yeah, who are you? Who you think you are? What you smiling so much? Like whatever the stuff, whatever class you find yourself in. And many TV movies will take you through that experience where you see the new teacher comes in and the kids are like, I ain't listening to this teacher. And they just kids are in the back on the radios and playing around and goofing off. And the teacher's like, I need your attention. I need your attention. And they just feel like they don't know what to do. Sometimes they quit. They want to quit. They talk about quitting. Sometimes they walk out the room. And the kids are like, we won again. We got them. And what it requires is that when you experience that teachers, when you experience that mentors, when you experience that coaches, when you experience that counselors, when you experience that feeling of like it's not working, it requires you to get new knowledge that helps you to pull yourself out of the valley of despair. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, as I tell that story, actually, 3 more stories come to mind. I don't have time to tell you right now, but I do want you to know that when I was a first year teacher, The Ever Forward Club started during my first year teaching. When I was a first year teacher, I was not doing a good job. Like, I was excited to be there. And I was carrying two sometimes opposing views in my mind. Like, okay, Ashanti, we still got some savings left. We just left this engineering career, but we're here for a reason. Even when I was doing bad, even when I was having smart kids fail my class, it wasn't because I didn't care. It wasn't because I wasn't working hard. It wasn't because I didn't want it. It was because I was watching students who were just really brilliant, refusing to let it be seen. And I had to figure, okay, either I'm going to be stuck down here in this valley of despair, or I'm going to push my way out. And the Ever Forward Club was started in 2004 when I was a first year teacher because I was watching smart kids fail algebra, like almost intentionally fail. And I was not willing to just get stuck there. And I was like, I got to try something different. And the slope of enlightenment wasn't, let me try and teach them more math. Let me blame them. My slope of enlightenment was, there's something that I'm missing. As there's something that me as a teacher is missing in why these smart kids are failing classes, and I'm not willing to just let it be because it's their fault. Now, ultimately, I'm not doing the work for them. And I was clear about that every day. I'm not doing the work for you. So if you don't do the work, I'm just going to name that you can't blame me when you turn 18 and you ain't going to graduate. Like, I'm just naming it now for your immature 14, 15-year-old selves that right now you're sabotaging your 18-year-old self. And if you don't do something different, you're going to have a very unhealthy, unpleasant outcome. I tried to educate them around that, to paint the picture of the future that they were creating for themselves. And some of them got it. Some of them was like, oh, wait, yeah, that's right. Some of them couldn't get it. Some of them had older brother, older sibling, older cousin who had got in the valley of despair also and just stuck down there and didn't get out. I wanted them to say, you got a choice. And at this point, because you're smart enough, you don't get to blame anybody else. You definitely don't get to blame me. Like, I was really self-protecting my own self in many ways, but I was also like, you're going to have to look in your mirror and say, Mr. Branch told me that I was going to suffer because I was being lazy and as a freshman. I didn't listen. I'm literally looking for somebody to blame. But he already told me I can't blame nobody. I got to blame myself. That is how we help young people learn. And so with that kind of context, I created in my room a space where students were afraid of making mistakes, so they just did nothing. There's this old Simpsons shirt that I bought and lost. I didn't even got to wear it. But I remember it was just the message was on. It was so powerful. It was like, I never make mistakes because I don't try anything new. And I think that what I tried to create in my classroom was a space. That's when I remember when I bought it, I was like, I'm putting that in my classroom. I want my students to see this. Don't be like that. Don't be like, I never make any mistakes because I don't try anything new. And I could do it if I wanted to do it, but I'm just not going to do it. Like, don't go to the I was going to say, don't go to the mind twisting game of trying to figure out how to outgame a system that is rigged already to sometimes against you. Do your best. Get the help you need to get better at your best, and then you can move on in the future. And so when I was in this podcast with Roni, I was talking about this village in Teotitlán de Valle. And I remember when I walked by this village, I was going with my godson. We were going to do a mask workshop in Teotitlán de Valle. We were he was connecting me with one of his cousins who had an English school in the village. And so we were walking, and I'm gonna show you a video of that. I'm gonna let you hear the audio of that, because when I saw the audio, when I saw the door of this English school, I was like, the teacher in me got super excited. All right, so we just finished a workshop here in Teotitlán de Valle in the English class. I'm here with Diego. And you know what? We gotta go read the door. Tenemos que leer ese door. Mira, this is a class. He's doing classes of English here in the village, and what a beautiful class. I did the workshop a couple of times, and it was phenomenal. But I want you to read the door, what the door says of the learning zone. It's called the learning zone. Look at this, it says, this is a learning zone. Mistakes are expected, respected, inspected, and corrected. Come on, somebody. That's amazing. What if every door in classrooms around America, around the world, said this? Like, man, like, mistakes are expected, respected, inspected, and corrected. Oh, beautiful. That's priceless. This is a learning zone. Mistakes are expected, respected, inspected, and then corrected. At that time, I had been teaching for many years. I've been in and out of schools all over. That writing on that metal corrugated metal door, corrugated metal door, like took me by surprise, and I was so juiced. I took multiple pictures with the door by itself. I made a video of the door. I read the door. Like I was like, that is what I need to bring back to here in the Bay Area, to schools all over. Every school should have a sign in the hallway in the room that says, "This is a learning zone. Mistakes are expected, respected, inspected, and corrected." So anyway, I want to, when you see this image, hopefully it will resonate to you. And if you don't have a poster to print out for yourself, you can print this poster out. You can take a screenshot and share it, make your own poster. But let's make sure that all classrooms are places where mistakes are not seen as negative, where mistakes are seen as opportunities to learn. Mistakes are seen as the building blocks for the next chapter of your life. That's what I'm hoping. And so this past, I'm not sure, a couple of months ago, I presented it at a conference in the Solano schools with Napa, Friday Night Live, and I got to present. And when I came to the presentation, my presentation was on the second floor in the main building. I was walking by a classroom, and I'm always looking at posters on classrooms. If you look at my phone, I probably have hundreds of posters from classrooms all over the world. But this one was special. It was called The Learning Pit. And I guess the image is created by someone named James Nottingham. James Nottingham. And on this image, I guess for those who are listening, I'm trying to paint pictures of an image to you so you can visualize it. So sorry about so many images in this one. This is the last image, so you can get it. There's a kid standing at the top of a ledge, and at the ledge it says learning. And the kid has a quote in bubbles that says, "I think I know the answer." Okay. And then he goes down the slope, and all of a sudden he says, "This is not as easy as I thought." And at the bottom of that is the pit. And then next to that image, he says, "I'm confused." These are all like little quotes from like a story kind of flow from left to right. Then he's confused. And then he is pulling himself out of this pit with this rope, and he's saying, "I need to work hard at this." And on the other side, he says, as he's getting toward the top of this other ledge, it's a little bit higher than the previous ledge, "I think I'm getting it." And by the time he gets to the top of the next ledge, which is higher than the other one, it says, "Eureka, I understand it now." So from the learning side, what learning should look like, to the other side of success, which takes you to a higher level than you were before, there may be bumps. And if our students think that because they don't get it the first time that there's something wrong with them, then they're going to maybe not try anymore. And we need to let them know that if you're growing, you're going to have some tension. You're going to have some stress. You're going to have some pressure. Like growing requires some growing pains. Not only with what happens in puberty, what happens in your growth spurts, what happens in growing up, what happens in adolescence. Now, the last time I was telling you about this documentary called Adolescence, or not a documentary, this film based on a true story, I hadn't seen it. But this time I've seen it. Now, because I don't have as much time as I was hoping to like give you more information, I want to do a special episode about adolescence. I want to talk to you about adolescence, and I want to talk to you about what happens in this film. It's on Netflix. I don't know. They're not one of our sponsors, but here's what I need you to do. Like, I've never had Netflix until this past Friday. I got it to watch this thing, Adolescence. I kept hearing about it, and all I could see was a trailer on YouTube. So I had to get it, because what you're going to see, a little boy, 13 years old, maybe you can call him a young man. And it's not a secret. This is the premise of it. He takes the life of a girl from his school. And if I just start with that as a premise, that's what happens in the first 30 seconds or 5-6 minutes of the film. You find this out. So it's not a secret. I need you just to understand there's a process that took place of what he went through. Not what he went through when he did what he did, because we know that he did it. But the why. The what was at play in his heart, his soul, and his mind that would cause him to do these behaviors. And listen, they're happening all the time. Our young people, not just our young men, but our young men in huge numbers, more than anyone else, are creating a lot of this. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because they've come into a place of helplessness. They feel like they're in this valley of despair. They feel like they're in the pit, and they don't know who to talk to get out of the pit. And they're spinning around, and sometimes it feels helpless. Listen, I just want you to know that this work that we have to do to improve education for all students, but definitely when we're talking about making schools feel like our young men belong there, we're going to have to do some work. It's going to feel a little uncomfortable for some of it. Some of it's going to be things you don't want to spend time having these conversations. They should come to school student ready, but they're going to have to. We're going to have conversations that may be uncomfortable with our own selves. When we talk about the mask at most schools, students aren't usually afraid to do the mask. They may resist. They're not afraid to make the mask. We need educators who also are not afraid to make their mask, to be human, to be more human than you may have been before, because you were told that your job as a teacher is to be superheroes. No kryptonite. Always on. That's what happens. And so today, as I think about Roni and episode 16, as he does the work with EQ schools, and I said EQ schools earlier, and I don't think I think most of you know what EQ is, but just for the sake of clarity, EQ represents emotional intelligence, as in IQ represents like intellectual. Is that intellectual? No, that's not right. Intellectual intelligence. What does IQ stand for? Actually, now I don't even know what IQ stands for. Anyway, I know what EQ stands for: emotional intelligence. And so what we talk about is making schools where we have understanding that we not only are these bodies, but we're feelings too. And when young men are told when they're young not to show any of those feelings, they show up in your classroom. They're walking around like landmines, full of emotions that have not been dealt with, realized, even accepted, expected, inspected, or even definitely not respected. And if we don't give young people, definitely our young men, space to navigate those emotions in healthy ways, we're just going to be waiting for them to show up in an unhealthy way. And over again, what we keep seeing in schools all over the country is young men exploding like landmines. And I'm inviting you today, if you're a teacher, educator, parent, coach, mentor, if you were a social worker, if you were just an uncle or auntie in the community and you have a young man in your life, please make sure they know they can come to you and talk about whatever it is they're feeling in a safe way. So we don't have to navigate talking to them through some glass or through some bars because they didn't know how to handle it and it had to come out in some way. Over and over again, we see the remnants of what happens when that happens. So I'm inviting you today, please share this episode with someone. Go check out the Dunning-Kruger Effect. Check out The Learning Pit by James Nottingham. Check out the image we're going to share in all of our platforms about the learning zone. Grab that image, use it, share it, do whatever you want to do with it, but don't keep it to yourself. Make sure the young men in your life know. And if you haven't seen the series Adolescence, I really highly encourage you to find a way to watch it soon, like real soon, because what we're seeing in that film, it's not just happening on the film. It's happening every day in our communities. And I invite you to be a person who is about transforming how our young men are seen and how they see the world. Take a breath. Hope you had your notes out today. Thank you for being here. We look forward to the next episode with you when we take a deep dive into adolescence, not only the film, but what's happening in adolescence today and what's happening with our young men all over that we see, not only that we hear from when they make masks, but that we see in this work. So stay tuned for that. We'll see you real soon. Thank you for being here. Remember, go check out episode 16 with Roni Habib. the CEO and founder of EQ Schools. Take care. See you next time. Bye, everybody.